start. Welcome everyone to the next iteration of the community meeting. Today is May the 3rd. Close a Star Wars joke, but tomorrow. We have some news here. As a friendly reminder, if you're here, you managed to find the correct link. We changed the Zoom link. Instead of using the private Zoom room of this account, we're using a public meeting, so you won't have this waiting for the host to approve your entrance. And we updated the website, the community pages, and also thanks Anna for updating the calendar in the main community repo of Keptn. So now everything should be pointing towards this new link. And then some news about the status of Keptn v1 and the KLT. Keptn v1.4 is kind of cooked. Everything is there. But we are prioritizing KLT. And this will most likely come today, right after this committee meeting. I just need to test one last thing, the Helm charts, to make sure that everything works fine. Otherwise, thanks a lot for everyone that contributed to the new version. We have a very cool new feature called automatic discovery of your Keptn application. So you don't need anymore to provide a Keptn app CRD when you try to deploy something with Keptn. But if you're using the standard recommended Kubernetes labels, we can observe your application and do all the magic out of the box for free. Then I want to announce a new meeting. This is a public technical committee meeting. I created a community entry here. Not much information is available here because we don't want to have an agenda. We want to keep it very public. Everyone can join. It's once per month. The next one will be on May the 10th. And here you can ask the technical committee everything that you want to know about the technical direction of Keptn, or if you have any question about a specific Keptn enhancement proposal, or you want to include a new integration, just join this meeting, we can discuss it. Or you also, if you have any issue, feel free to talk with us about anything. It would be me, Brad, and Thomas Schütz at the moment there. Okie dokie. Then we have items for the documentation. Here, one topic about, remind me later, about the documentation. So thanks a lot, Meg, for going over this revamp of the documentation. But I have some issues. So let me first of all open, where is it? I lost it. It's easier to go from here. The preview. And this is about evaluation. So here, my question to the community is, how would you like to have this documentation? Because at the moment, we have something like here deprecated, but does it make sense to have something like this here in the documentation? Because if you look at the releases, we also version the documentation. So if you look at the documentation 0.7, and this was deprecated and not available anymore, you won't see it. And the question is, do you want to have an historical versioning of the things in the documentation or not? Furthermore, do you prefer having a high-level view about what concepts the KLT provides you with? Or would you like to have a more fine-grained details about what every field is used for, like this in more human-readable format? And also the difference between the different versions all the time. Or it's fine for you to have documentation like Kubernetes does, automatically generated for each different versions. And then you can see inside that.
And one more piece of it, if you go into implementing Keptn applications, right now there's titling issues, but yeah, integrate. This is a lot of material that was on the app concepts page. So my my concept open for discussion, but is that the implementing this becomes more sort of guides things of how you put everything together. And then you have the reference page that has every nasty little detail about each field that you have to fill out in the CRD. So it isn't this material is not going away. We'll be adding to it. I need to talk to Flo, but something about the app, the automatic app discovery, etc.
Yeah, my major question is, does the community is happy with something like this one, which is generated? And okay, here we need to provide better documentation for sure. That is automatically generated from the code and the versions are available here. Or do they prefer something like, where is it? Yeah, like this one, more human friendly with the difference between the versions and everything, because this is a painful things to maintain. I'm towards more this automatically generated documentation where we don't need to care about the versioning, tell the difference between the versions, and go into details about each and every fields, because we have iterated that in the code, and we can generate this documentation and version this documentation automatically. Of course, we need to provide better fields and description here in the code so we can generate better tables like this one.
And we also have an issue because these do not correspond. These don't have everything that's in the YAML file. I have to pick up several of these or sub-objects, etc., right?
May I add my 2 cents?
Sure, that's why we want to hear it from the community.
Okay, so first of all, the differences between the versions. I think it's not needed because we have already in the top the different releases listed. And if I'm going there, I don't really care about the other versions, to be honest, when I'm using Keptn. The other thing is for the CRDs, I think it's easier to maintain it auto-generated because that's a lot of things. But I also like the examples in the YAML references, but those should be maybe then listed within the different concepts, right? So having these concepts and with the examples and the actual CRD reference auto-generated would be my take on it.
The reason for the differences, by the way, for differences between versions is like I mean, I know if I've been using KLTs, I mean, right now it's all new, but the time will settle down. I've been doing the evaluation provider, and I upgrade to a new release, and evaluation provider is gone. I can't find it. There's nothing that I guess I could go back to the release notes, dig back and find it. You know, in other words, it's changes. It's because in my mind, I thought I know how to use this. Or to tell me as it happens in 071, the evaluation definition is going to look the metrics definition is going to look slightly different because of this. And it just, I don't want to have to sit here and look at 2 different sets of almost identical documentation and do sort of a manual grep down it to find where there's a difference.
But wouldn't it be better to have between the versions a kind of, I mean, with the release notes, there should be listed breaking changes.
Yeah, and there are, and that's, and to me, I mean,
and if
I
I'm
don't want to have to
upgrading
be
my Keptn, if I'm upgrading my Keptn KLT instance with a new version, I'm looking into the breaking changes section. And so that's what I'm typically doing if I'm upgrading my system. It's the same for Keptn V1. And then if there is an additional information added to it, would be, of course, beneficial, like an upgrade guide or whatever. But having all this across the different places in the documentation may be a little bit confusing.
The typical scenario we had with Keptn LTS is that people were upgrading from 7 to 15, 16. So still having the difference in between each release doesn't really give me anything. What would be good is like we had there a single landing page where I have all of the instruction of what is to be done to upgrade from one version to the other. I agree.
Upgrade
but then
guide,
we're talking about single user systems. So if it's my system and I want to upgrade, I read the release notes, I read the upgrade, I get everything upgraded, and now I know it. What if you have a large group of people working with this and one person goes in and upgrades and then somebody else comes along and they're expected to do something and it's like, well, where's this field that I knew about, or why does this change? I
mean, if you're working in the group with multiple people who are using KLT, you shouldn't just upgrade it and that's something I would communicate with my team if I'm upgrading Keptn, and not doing it just, hey, it's upgraded and now go ahead. I think that's out of our control if people are not communicating with their teams.
Yeah. There, it's two different. I've been through this. There are arguments on both sides. Now, the one that bothers me is we don't have the ability to auto-generate documentation that as a user, I see the YAML file. That's what I have to fill in. That's what I need to know how to fill in. It seems to me rather difficult to get from what we're auto-generating to what the YAML file looks like. That it's not for the faint of heart.
But isn't it what the concepts and then under the concepts the different examples are for?
Right, but those cannot be auto-generated. Somewhere we've got to have this information.
Sure, but I wouldn't go through if we can auto-generate documentation, why shouldn't we use it? Then we have documentation within the code and it won't be missed on version upgrade because it's auto-generated, right?
Right. And that was, but this is what we can auto-generate. If we could auto-generate how you fill out the YAML files, that would be, and embed that. There are apparently severe limits as to how much formatting we can do with anything we embed in the code.
I have a silly question.
Yes?
We do have integration tests that run using YAML file. May it be worth it selecting one of those as the default file for the documentation so that for each version we know we have a YAML file which actually reflects how to use the lifecycle toolkit in that version?
KubeBuilder generates examples out of the box for us.
It does, but if we don't modify them correctly, we don't see any error there. So we are the one that adds the spec and everything else. Usually KubeBuilder, as far as I know, auto-generate only the top four lines. So no real spec. It's
everything.
empty.
Yeah, either we use the sample files or we use the integration test, so we know that they are tested and they are working.
And
yeah, that was.
And we need the definition of the fields also, like the human readable, what we put there. That's going to have to be authored now. It certainly could be theoretically authored within the code and generate something out. But
or we could have some sort of way to double check that the samples are up to date.
But but where do you get the explanation about how to fill in each field? What the values are and stuff.
It would be
A
here, for
comment?
instance. So here, I agree that this is very bad. For instance, here we don't provide any exact information, but we can provide extra text here, the description. We can fill in everything here in the
But
table.
how does the, I mean, super series, where do I get all the fields that go in the YAML file? In other words, this is not everything that goes in the YAML file because they're in other sub-objects or something.
That's what Christian was saying, that we can have it here, this example, and we can include some piece of YAML from one that we test for.
Right, but how do I see the field definitions for those fields that are not in that section of the auto-generated?
So maybe what Mac means is that we have to make sure that the example uses all of the possible fields that we can have in the resource.
But the example doesn't tell me that we have, well, or then if we're not going to describe the fields, we have to have an example for everything they could possibly do.
That is, yeah, exactly like in the Kubernetes.
Yeah.
Also in Kubernetes, they don't describe every single.
Because sometimes also certain properties within a CRD might be mutually exclusive. Then it might be confusing if we include all possible properties in one example. So I think we still need the concepts, because also most of the custom resources are not very useful in isolation. So you still need some guides on how to combine those and use them together.
Right, and the guide
like we have in the concepts. Yeah.
Well, the concepts doesn't put them together because it's all talking about an app or a metric. That my vision of what is, you know, is reference and guide separated. It's sort of standard, but so like for instance, under implementing, you know, we've got the installation and then implementing, you have these other pieces, and then we can also, but
maybe to don't block the whole meeting, since we have also some other topics to discuss, maybe I suggest Mac to sync with Andy on this specific topic to see, because he has a lot of knowledge about end user, how do they read the documentation, what they look for when they check for documentation, what are the things that are missing in the documentation.
And I did one quick sync with him where I showed him the auto-generated stuff, and he says, "What's this? I don't know what to do." And he flipped up the thing with the YAML files, says, "This is what I need." So I did do a check with him, but
yeah, but we need to keep.
But
I will create an ad hoc meeting for that.
Yeah, maybe that's a good one.
Then Simon, the stage is yours, so we don't block.
yes.
No, that's nothing really that important. Just, oh my God, Zoom is messing around. Perfect. So first of all, the new landing page, we already showed it in the last in the community meeting for the other region. Just in the last community meeting, it was just a preview pull request and a preview. Now we already have it merged, and we have a fine and nice looking landing page for Keptn KLT. Actually, if you have any kind of suggestions, please let us know. We can always adapt, improve. But we think it's a great start, and it looks way better than the old one. With a little bit more information, we also can improve the information. Just let us know what you think, and we will hopefully adapt. We have time. that's part one. And the part two is I also, long time ago, I started this doxy exploration. And there is a really big pull request. Do not look at the files, look at the preview, because yeah. What I actually did, when you take a look at the documentation page, is actually I prepared everything to be using doxy. So up in the top, so it's not well styled currently, and there needs to be style adaptations. But those are just minor. This is just a really few things to do. But when you go to the releases, actually on the top right, this is actually using the default doxy, how you call it, the doxy layout, etc. And it's also adapted for the releases. So the changes are that big because I moved all the documentations into different folders, so that we have different releases with all those kind of information, which can be easier used for others. The question is now, this pull request is already, this pull request is just still an exploration, but with little effort, we can make this happen, and we can replace actually the old documentation with the new one to make it easier to navigate. There are still a few sections. For example, this community tab will be removed by the community tab of our other, which we have in the KLT, and things like that. So there are maybe a little bit design adaptations, but overall we have a big improvement compared to the state which is in there currently. The question is if we want to continue, if we should continue on that, or if we just discard the pull request.
And does this give us some sort of a search working? We have a search button in the upper right. Does it actually work?
I did not check if this is working.
Looks like it's working.
And you see there are the different versions actually with the docs where it is stored in the, yeah.
I mean, I like the looks of this better, but even if I didn't, having any sort of search capacity, I think would be extremely worth something.
Content-wise, as in the old Keptn page, there's not, this in the text in the middle is just some exploration of mine, which will be removed. That's just,
Yeah.
I tried to edit the copyright text at the bottom, and I committed it by accident. Sorry. I did not try to polish it, because it's more about how it looks like currently, and if we want to continue on that path, and if we want to finish it, because it's not much effort actually, the whole process. It was just more like moving files around and adapting the style a little bit, but this is usable and can be achieved by anybody. And also I think I also found some nice things which we can also apply to the KLT. For example, having the version in the, not writing documentation on the left side, but also providing on the menu on top the version like we do for release 0.19 is really helpful, I think, because people know in which documentation they actually are, which we maybe need to adapt for the KLT documentation too.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Okay, this is empty. Yeah.
Oh.
Thank you a lot, especially for the landing page. This looks amazing.
Oh.
Now it's good luck polishing this PR, because this is very big. If we want to do the change, how we should do that? First of all, also, the enhancement proposal was voted by the governance community and was merged. Let me open it. That the lifecycle toolkit would be the standard to onboard new users. So is it worth to work still on the old website?
There are still things which we also need to take out of the old website when we migrate to the new one, because, for example, the news section, etc., is currently only containing it. So there's still effort we have to incorporate and take a look at. So, I mean, I started with that without knowing about the enhancement proposal, and it was just my gap filler.
Mm-hmm.
But the question is, I'm also fine if we do not use it at all, but it is an improvement for the old documentation, and it will help people to navigate. So it's still the polishing.
And it also, I mean, we're not actually taking down Keptn v1. It's out. We're not going to be contributing a lot, but community could. It means that we've got the two sets of documentation using the same set of tools. Otherwise, we're going to have to continue dealing with the old tools, and that's going to get more and more painful.
It's also the development experience is also improved. That's something for the even though the documentation is not that much used, but this documentation with Doxy builds within 15 seconds locally. The other one used a minute. So to start the server, etc. So this is.
So what we could do is to get rid of the releases, since now we have a stable version of Keptn.
No.
I would suggest to provide the documentation only for the stable version of Keptn. This way, you don't have to mess around with this big of a changes set in the PR, and will be easier to polish. So you don't have so many files to look around, but only a single version. Would that be okay?
What about, we know that there are I mean, Simon's done a lot of work to get fewer external references coming to the old sets, but there are still a lot out there. Are we gonna, I mean, but they also, I mean, if there's links to 080 and they will work, will we stop building these or just stop displaying them?
So for example, you can do that. So the old link, when you go to the URL bar, the old link would be doc/0.10.x or something. And we have a URL rewrite, which will point to the current. So this is also included already. So it will also rewrite to the new, so the docs are in there, and it will also redirect to the 10.x doc. So it's covering also the old links actually getting in and pointing to the pages.
Yeah.
So there is an URL rewrite which will also take you to the newest page actually. Also to the new URL rewritten page. So all the links out there will still work. But there is still anyway another discussion then going on regarding KLT and how we handle the KLT links when the domain changes and how we point the people to the right. Also, the whole switching the web page, if you want to keep the links intact, is a really different topic. There are some suggestions and solutions to the problem, but this is something we need to discuss in a different kind of matter, because ideally we will change some kind of URL. Also, we will change a little bit the folder structure, maybe of the KLT, or adapt it in a way that we can differentiate if the user wanted to go to Keptn or KLT actually. So, yeah. But this is a whole different topic where we will most likely generate a new ticket out of it, most likely.
But actually, the industry-wide, all the 0-point releases for Keptn are really betas, right? And when you release the official one, we don't need to show the beta, continue to show the betas on the web page, right?
I mean, the only thing is they blew up the pull request because we are moving files from the folder docs/o.10.x to the folder docs-v010.x. So it's not, a lot of the files are really just moving around. This is the biggest problem actually.
Oh gosh. Yeah, and also how we can integrate the two different sets of documentation into once. We might have a look at Flux, how they're, where's it? The Flux Flagger, we can have something similar.
We can, but they do not do versions.
No, exactly. A lot of things to think about.
This is possible. This is doable. I think it's doable. There's also most likely things we need to do, and this is actually taking a lot of effort if we want to take this effort. Just some thoughts I put in there, and I just say them out loud now, because we have this news section, we have the community section, we have do we have a blog section? I'm not sure if we have a blog section, but
No.
those 3 are actually global ones, and we maybe want to extract them from the original documentation set, like into maybe the community repository or into an own more global repository that people, and we will include them like we do with the community for the KLT, so that they're managed on a central point, on a central place with all the information, and they are visible, the same content is visible for both documentation sets, and we only have to maintain one kind of news section actually. So we can either put it into the community repository or create a new repository. That's a question, but I would actually recommend to use the community repository to have this in one place somehow. Yeah.
Okie dokie. Then any topic from the community in chat? Rakshit, do you have any topic that you'd like to discuss? Any question for us?
No, nothing from my side.
Okie dokie. Then I'll say thanks, everyone. It was a very productive meeting. Enjoy the rest of your day and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.